everybody? Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Collar here again, just back from another Minnesota Vikings practice. We are 9 of them in, and we have the night practice tomorrow, and I will be going live after that. As soon as the night practice is over, run back home, jump here live, and off we go to break it down. And because the night practice is tomorrow, the Vikings did not have a hard practice today. It was on the shorter side, and also they were just in shells. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't have any takeaways, and I did track the quarterback, so we'll go through that. But just keep in mind that this tracking is not for one of their more intense practices, not with the pads on, and that tomorrow night I think will be a little bit more telling when it comes to the reps and all that. And when they've done either walkthroughs or shells, they have had pretty equal reps for JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray, and that was the case today. So let's get into it. And then a little bit after that, since it wasn't that intense of a practice and not much changed today, I've got a question and a comment for every position, except special teams. My only question would be whether Will Reichard's going to make 94 or 95% of his kicks this year. But every other position, I have a question and a comment. So I would love yours. Question and a comment about a position, a player, a thought that you have in the chat, and anything else that is on your mind. So I'll run through this and then get to those, and we'll get your feedback. So let's get to the quarterbacks. As you can see from those completion percentages, this was not a happy day out at TCO Performance Center. Now, again, was it 100% speed? No, I don't think so. Jordan Addison also was taking part in some of the stuff, but was not taking part in 11-on-11s, so that also has to be factored as well. But Kyler Murray had just 5 completions on 14 throws. A little bit of context there. One incompletion was a pass interference that Justin Jefferson would have caught it. And I'm not just guessing, like, they have refs out there just for your information. Like, so they threw the flag. Another one was actually a positive throw that went incomplete that Murray dropped perfectly in the bucket for Jauan Jennings. The ref said that he had a foot out. I'm not sure if he actually did. It was, fast motion, but it was a really perfectly placed throw toward the sideline. Jennings makes the catch right in the breadbasket there, and they said that he had a foot out of bounds, but certainly can't call that a negative throw. But it was an incompletion, so maybe with those two, he would have been more like 7 for 14. Still not very good on the day for Kyler Murray. He had 3 positive throws, 7 routine, and 4 negative throws. And 4 negative throws is too many for Kyler Murray at this point, which we'll go through kind of the details on those. And JJ McCarthy did not have much better of a day. He had 6 completions, 6 incompletions, 2 positives, 7 routine, and 3 negatives for McCarthy. So kind of a mirror of each other. They were doing red zone, which does make it a little harder to get completion percentage for any quarterback when you're in the red zone and things are tightened in. But still, like, neither quarterback was very sharp today. So why don't we start by looking at Kyler Murray's day a little more in depth. This is Murray's grid here. There were no passes that were deep. I will say there weren't exactly many opportunities to do that. They were doing a 2nd and long drill, and then, 2nd down into 3rd down, trying to get a 1st down. And then there was a lot of red zone. So it wasn't like they were taking a ton of deep shots over the top. Nonetheless, no attempts deep today. In the intermediate area, Kyler Murray did not have a good day really at all. He went just 1 for 5 in the intermediate area with 2 negative throws there. And then on the short stuff, was not as precise as you would expect either, where he was just 4 for 7 on the short stuff and had 2 negative throws and 1 positive throw in the red zone there. So let's take a look at the highlights and the lowlights. So the highlights, the touch throw that I described to you to Jauan Jennings, I had as a highlight because, I mean, if he brings it in and toe taps, and maybe there would have been a flag, a red hanky thrown on that one. It was very, very close along the sideline. Ref ends up saying it's out of bounds, and the defensive player celebrated, but it really was one of those perfect touch type of throws for Kyler Murray that Juwan Jennings brings in. So a nice pass there, even though it ends up technically ruled as an incompletion. And he also had a touchdown in the back of the end zone to Jeshaun Jones, where he drops back in very good timing, progresses to Jones, throws it kind of low and outside away from the defender because he was really well covered by Zamiah Vaughn, and he threw it to a spot where only Jeshaun Jones could go down and get it. He kind of slides down in the back of the end zone, grabs it, and it was a touchdown. So those were two of his best throws. The lowlights, though, there were more than there were plus throws. Just spotty accuracy overall. There's 3 or 4 where I wrote down negative throws where it was just, this one was overthrown or this one was not where it needed to be. And one of those examples that was probably the worst of the day was where Justin Jefferson was running an out-breaking route, and it ends up, he reaches out to grab the ball. It hits him in the hand, but he can't get extended and get the ball in there accurately. And so that's not usually what you'd expect from Kyler Murray, is that when somebody's open, that especially Jefferson, those two have had very good chemistry, but they didn't connect on that one. And then there was also Jeshaun Jones over the middle, where if he just throws it accurately, it's probably a tight window completion, probably a positive throw on the list. And instead it ends up as a negative throw because it was too high. Now, I mean, I don't know if it's Jordan Addison, can he get up there and grab it? But that's not really what you're looking for. You're looking for an accurate throw over the middle. So there were more of those than there should have been at this point in the game for Kyler Murray. Now on to JJ McCarthy, and then we'll talk about, what it means. Again, just to reiterate, if you're just joining, an unpadded practice, so can't really weigh this one too heavily. Just would have liked to seen either quarterback be accurate or consistent in this practice, and neither one really were. McCarthy did also not have deep balls. They weren't really doing a whole lot of those route combinations today, but he was better in the intermediate areas where he went. Well, no, I guess he wasn't. He also had some incompletions too. You're talking about less than 50% total combined completion percentage for both guys. So he ends up going 3 for 6. Let me do my math here. 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it was 3 for 8 in the intermediate areas with 3 negative throws. So I guess I had spoke too soon on that, but the intermediate throws were a struggle for McCarthy. And then the underneath stuff, he was 3 for 4 with 3 routine, 4 routine throws. Nothing really eventful on the underneath stuff for JJ McCarthy. But if we look at his highlights and lowlights, he had at the end of practice, I wrote this down as a highlight. I'm curious about what maybe Kevin O'Connell would say about this one, or somebody who was standing right behind it. But he had a rollout play. It was a bootleg where he could have checked it down, and he decided that he was going to keep his eyes downfield. So he's rolling away from the pressure, and he sees Ty Felton down the field, and the defender kind of has his back to Felton. So McCarthy just lets it rip in Felton's direction, and he's able to go down and make the grab for what would have been probably about 15. It's not sometimes exact when it's between 15 and 25 yards, trying to figure out, now, wait a minute, where did he catch that exactly? But around that, let's call it 15 to 20 yards, goes down to the ground, grabs it. Throw was rocket hard from JJ McCarthy. And it looked like he had identified, hey, downfield, I have a shot here because the defender's back is to him, and maybe Felton's coming back to me a little bit, and bang, makes a nice throw there, or at least a highlight reel completion. I don't know if they would have said, hey, you held onto the ball too long or something like that. These things in an unpadded practice are harder to tell when it's in maybe a padded practice. Maybe they call it a sack. I don't know. I don't think so, though, because McCarthy is a good athlete. He can roll out anyhow. And then there was a red zone one, and this guy's name keeps coming up a lot. Jeshaun Jones in the back of the end zone, where it was just a strong, on-time, accurate throw, drop back, see Jones across the backside, bang, hit him for a positive throw there. And the lowlights in one of the series, he had 4 passes, and 3 of them were batted down by defenders. And the worst of which was a rollout where Justin Jefferson, he was with the ones, Justin Jefferson was open behind a defender. And if you can layer it up over that defender, you've got Justin Jefferson for a 12 or 14 yard gain, and instead kind of throws it right into the hand of Cameron Stewart, who has shown up a number of times. Honestly, he's an undrafted free agent outside linebacker from Temple, who has, I think, had a pretty good start to camp and is getting some work with the twos at outside linebacker. He made a nice play on the ball, but if you just toss it up, I mean, he's wide open, even a little bit over the defender, you have a completion. And then there was a couple other PBUs in there as well. And just in the red zone, someone in the tent, I won't name any names, did say we're going to need a stopwatch for this drill, because there were times in the red zone where it was, come on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just a number of throws were not accurate, but a lot of them were just taking a really long time for McCarthy today. In terms of what it means overall in the big picture, well, nothing really. I mean, this was an even practice, 7 first team throws for McCarthy, 6 for JJ McCarthy. The overall reps were very even for both guys in this practice, but it's not like the needle moved one way or the other. I will say this, though, that Kyler Murray's last 2 practices, he has struggled with consistency and accuracy, which is not something that I felt like in other practices he had too many problems with. And if there was going to be a time to just close it out, he had been quite a bit ahead going into this week, and the first team reps have slanted heavily toward Kyler Murray through the last 3-4 practices. Today they've done this every time when they go into a walkthrough or shells, they'll go 50-50. But just even if we looked at the last 5 or 6 practices, the first team reps are clearly Kyler Murray by a wide margin, 3 times as many as JJ McCarthy. And it felt like Murray, if he had 2 really good practices, would just make it blatantly obvious to everybody, all right, that's enough. There's no longer a need to go along with this thing, and we could just call it a day and move on. And that would have been pretty easy. But these haven't been very good practices for Kyler Murray over these last 2 days. Now, how the coaching staff looks at that, I do not know, because they may be looking at different stuff than just results. And there's a lot of caveats to give when I track all the passes and give my positives and negatives and take a little poll between 2 or 3 people about different passes and stuff like that, because we don't know what the reads are supposed to be. We don't know where the ball's supposed to go. We don't know if somebody else messed up on a given play for either one of these quarterbacks. But in terms of results, too many negative plays for Kyler Murray over these last 2 days. Too much uneven, spotty play from really both of the quarterbacks today. But, Kyler was rolling along and having a really good practice maybe every other practice. And then these last 2 days have just been not all that impressive. So I think that Kyler may need a really good night practice. If he's going to get the announcement for next week, it may not matter. The decision may already be made, but the fact that he's still giving JJ McCarthy first team reps, and if we still see first team reps into the night practice, then we're going to go into that week and those 3 practices leading up to the preseason game going, hey, is this thing still on? Like, is Kyler not done enough yet to close the door? And is he going to leave it open for this to go longer into the summer? That's the question I still have walking out of TCO Performance Center today. And there are people starting to murmur, I think, a little bit of just on the internet or wherever else, wondering, how long is this going to go? Is this going to carry on? Like, at some point, are you taking too many reps away from Kyler? Like, is part of the reason he's not sharp is the fact that he is not getting as many reps as he would normally get? And then the other side of that is JJ McCarthy still in the conversation because Murray has not completely closed this thing out over the last couple of practices. Those and more are going to be, I'll go into more detail in my questions and comments section. But yeah, I mean, I just wasn't a great practice for anybody today. Also felt like lethargic in terms of the energy at the practice. I think everyone's looking forward to the night practice. And when you go from hardcore, putting on the pads, playing super aggressive to all right, back in shells, just didn't feel like it had a real intensity to the practice today. So here are the other notes from today's workout. Jamal Adams was once again at safety, and we had a chance to talk to Jamal after, and he seemed really elated to be back at safety. He said, "I'm just glad that someone gave me a chance to play safety," and that's, they switched his number. We don't know how long that's going to go on because Jay Ward and Jacoby Thomas were both missing today. So Jacob Thomas got first team reps and Jamal Adams got first team reps, because you can't just have Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus take all of them and with the first and second team and so forth. You got to mix some other people into it. And they've had to do that with two safeties out the last 2 days. And maybe we'll find out an update from O'Connell tomorrow, because we'll talk to him before the night practice, and we'll see tomorrow if there's an update on those guys or if they're back. Brian O'Neill appeared to have a veteran day. He was out there, had a hat on, looked happy. And Ryan Vandermark was the one who was taking his position with the first team. Damon Claiborne, I thought, looked really good today. I thought that this was the most comfortable he looked running the football. Now, there wasn't pads, so there's that caveat, but looked comfortable, including one run that was really impressive over the left side. The acceleration, the quickness, he breaks out. There's the fans kind of go crazy for a touchdown run for Damon Claiborne, but his comfort level seems to be improving pretty much every day at training camp. Now, I don't know how far that's going to go in terms of, will he have a role right away, but I think it is a plus from the way he's looked. Did not see Levi Drake Rodriguez today, but there was still not a huge increase in reps for Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange. So that is probably also going to be addressed in my questions in a few minutes. But that was kind of the facts, is they've just been working in a little bit, Banks and Orange, and you wonder when that's going to increase. Dante Fleming got a shout out from Matt Daniels about kick and punt returning. Now, I think we know that Miles Price has that lockdown as far as those two starting roles, but there is an opportunity there for the back end of the wide receiver room if someone like Fleming could carve out the number 2 spot, or even just if Miles Price were to get hurt or something like that as a punt returner. So that will come, I think, under the spotlight when we get to the preseason games. And Jayshon Jones continues to show up every single day. Now, you could say, is he the Tristan Jackson Tristan Jackson of Lucky Jacksons? Should we change his name to Jayshon Jackson? Like, the Vikings have had these players who are very good football players and are kind of 4A is what they would call them in baseball. Not quite good enough to be starting in the NFL, but definitely good enough to be here on a practice squad. And they live in that area and can never really break through. That might be Jayshon Jones, but it has been a very good training camp for him. And it's possible he could get his shot if he's on the practice squad. Someone gets hurt, he could get elevated, because he's been the most consistent wide receiver, even more so, I think, than Ty Felton. Also, Tristan Jackson on the coaching staff now for the Vikings, which is pretty cool. So here's what I want to do. So those are your notes. Those are your rundown. Some days we come in here and there's just so much to talk about with the quarterbacks. Today it was like, I don't know, guys, get it together tomorrow night for the fans, because that was kind of yucky. But here's what I want to do as we go into the night practice, because it was not that intense, and because Matt Daniels, always good at the podium and love his insight. And I've got a story coming with him very soon. But, it's not exactly like the owner talking like it was earlier this week. So sometimes we get like, oh, all these people talked in this big, important practice. That was not one of those days. This is a chill day going into an intense evening practice tomorrow. So here's what I did. In lieu of more stuff to talk about from the practice, I have a question and a comment about every position. I'm going to go through those, and then I will get to your questions and your comments in the chat. So let's start out with the offense. My question and a comment. Do you know where this comes? I hope you guys are, some of you are definitely old enough to know where, like, radio callers used to say, hey, Matt, I have a question and a comment. So I'll start off with, or something like that, or a comment and a question, whatever order. I just thought this was better. So that's where I got it. I don't know if people call radio stations anymore. I hope so. But anyway, for the quarterback position, my question and comment. My question is, how much longer? How much longer will this go on? because there is a point where it's too far for, either quarterback, right? Like the joint practices, you need the starting quarterback to be playing. I don't think you can let it get to that point, because then you are really cramming for the starter. So do you have to do it soon? And if soon, then why not maybe tomorrow? That could be the case. My prediction was August 13th all along. So I have not been as antsy as maybe some other people about this, because I thought, well, they'll probably do it before the preseason game because they'll name the starter to take the first series of reps. And even if they don't announce it, then we will know whoever takes the first series is the starting quarterback. But if it is Kyler Murray, and if that's the way that they are leaning heavily at this point, then you are approaching a time where you are just taking reps away from the guy who's going to be your QB1 at the beginning of the season. And I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. JJ McCarthy, it continued today, has gotten all the opportunity in the world to make this interesting, and really has had one quality practice where I walked away saying, hey, that was a really good day, and then followed it up with inconsistencies, slow reads today, and didn't separate himself from Kyler really at all this afternoon. So will we see consistency from Kyler Murray? Because he has had 2 practices this year. Last Saturday was one of them, and then I believe it was Wednesday. Wednesday, he hit multiple deep shots, had the jump ball to Justin Jefferson, which the internet wanted to argue about, but to me, jump balls to Justin Jefferson are always going to go over well with Justin and probably the head coach. But even if you throw that one out, deep balls, explosive, consistent with his accuracy. And then last Saturday's practice, the ball never hits the ground. Literally every single pass. And I will say, after those 2 practices, my thought was, boy, he is just going to lock into this offense and click, and off we go. And the conversation we were having in the tent today, as there was a lot of kind of slow portions of this practice, was, well, how did it look when it was Kirk? How did it look when it was Darnold? Because we wouldn't have even really done a lot with that. If Darnold had a bad practice, we'd be like, it's a bad practice from Darnold, let's go home. We'll see you tomorrow, right? Because there was no real question about it. It wasn't a competition, and I wasn't doing every single pass. I've actually enjoyed it. I think I process the practice a lot better when I do it, so I probably will, even if the competition comes to an end. But, there were days where Kirk didn't have great completion percentages, especially red zone drills are always going to bring those down. You're condensed. It's Flores' defense, so it's not the easiest thing in the world, but you do need to see if Kyler Murray is going to really lock in here, more consistency from him going into the future. And I really don't believe it was until after. So the Vikings back in 2024, this just shows you that it is still early in camp, because 2024, they had the night practice. And that was the night where Kevin O'Connell announced that JJ McCarthy had gotten hurt. And then after that, we all went to Cleveland for the joint practices. Darnold had a really tough first day, terrible first day. And then the second day got it together and played much better. But still, we were leaving Cleveland, and I know, fans were as well, going, oh, man, I don't know what this offense is going to be with Sam Darnold. And then it wasn't until we came back after that things started to click. He started to get on the same page with Jefferson, and maybe that was where they moved more toward game planning for the first week as opposed to installing things. So I'm willing to be patient when it comes to this, but I think that needs to happen soon. So there's my question, a comment. How much longer does this go on, and will we see consistency from Kyler? I guess that is no. You know what? There, I phrased them both as questions. How about we need to see consistency from Kyler is my comment. Running back. Is Claiborne going to pop in the preseason? Because I think if Damon Claiborne gets in the preseason, really shows something, shows an aptitude for the offense, that he can prove to them that he deserves to be out there. With his speed and his agility and his juice, they'll call it, there's something there. And we saw that today a little bit more. We saw it yesterday a little bit at times. He's got to learn where to run. He's got to learn how to do this at the NFL level. But if he really starts popping in preseason, that could grab their attention, kind of the same way Xavier Scott did last year. And my comment, so that's the question about Claiborne in preseason. And my question is, can I get this right? My comment is that I've liked the way that Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason have looked running the ball so far. whether that is schematically, I think they've done some things that have worked schematically, but I really mean just from how both of those individual players look. That the defensive line has had some success against the runs, but you've seen Aaron Jones showing some burst. Mason maybe down a few LBs, quickness and the way that he's moving his feet has been impressive. So I think both running backs are having a good camp thus far. My question at the wide receiver position is Miles Price, Jayshon Jones, Dante Fleming, question marks. That wide receiver 5 could even be 6 wide receivers. I had trouble finding that on my 53-man roster, and I'll probably do a projection after the first preseason game or something because, why not? Or maybe going into the first preseason game is a good idea for a 53. I don't know what to do there. I mean, I assume it's Miles Price. He's going to be the returner, but do they keep 6? Are those guys that, you can easily get into the practice squad, so you're not thinking necessarily put them on the roster? Could someone usurp Price if they kick returned well enough and then showed something as a receiver? I don't know. And my comment is at least Justin Jefferson is having a good camp because if he wasn't with Kyler Murray, we would probably be saying, okay, some of the ups and downs for the days are a little worrisome. But, these last 2 inaccurate days have been without Jordan Addison, which I think does make a difference because you're asking someone else to be Jordan Addison. And that's an option that Kyler worked with in the offseason. But Jefferson, I think, is having a very good camp. Offensive line, another, snap that wasn't that great today. That is a little concerning. I mean, when it comes to snapping the football, being 90% is not very good. You need to really be like 100% when you're snapping the football to Kyler Murray, because if it goes high, I'm not saying he can't jump, but I mean, Brandel snapped one over Carson Wentz last year, and this one was not one that got by Murray. It just was not very accurate and stood out how he had to kind of jump up for it. You're throwing off the timing of some of the plays. That is something I'll be watching if it gets more consistent, because for a couple days it went away and then all of a sudden there's another bad one. So is the snapping quality an issue is my question. And the comment is, I think they might need someone else on the interior of the offensive line, not for a starter, but maybe for a veteran rotational player. They just don't have anyone experienced there. Joe Huber is not experienced. Michael Juergens is not experienced. And the same thing goes for Henry Bird and all the other backups on the inside. Gavin Gerhardt has been running the third team. I think you might need a guy who's been around a little just in case something goes wrong. That might be something they look at. That's my opinion now. We'll see how it goes in the preseason games. And the tight end, my question is, can Gavin Bartholomew really carve out a role? By the end of the camp and preseason, will they be impressed enough to say, you know what? This guy's got to play. We got to get him in on some of these 3 tight end sets. Or is it more going to be like, hey, Gritty had a good camp, but, play special teams, that kind of thing? I think he can. That doesn't mean carve out a role as in he's going to be out there instead of Jawan Jennings a lot. He's going to be out there taking reps away from TJ Hawkinson. I don't see that. But I do think that the Vikings had some 3 tight end stuff that they did last year. And if you're down at the goal line, like maybe instead of putting Bredesen in at the tight end kind of position or 2 tight ends and a fullback, you have Bartholomew and you throw him the football. So there is the offense. And I'm curious in yours about your guys' questions and comments. If you want to throw those into the comment section, I'll get to them in just a minute. Now for the defense. Through 9 days of practice, the defensive line, will we see more of Caleb Banks soon? Because now he's out there doing everything, but when it comes to actual reps, it's a couple here, a couple there, and that's it. And that's been that way. And as we get deeper into training camp, if it stays that way, then I'm not going to be very convinced that week 1, Caleb Banks is going to be playing a whole heck of a lot. And it might be a slower process than we expected coming back. It is only 9 days into practice, but I had thought maybe we would see a little bit more of him and Dominique Orange. And we really have not seen a ton of reps from either one of them, a couple a day at full speed. And my comment is that Levi Drake Rodriguez and Ty Ingram Dawkins have really shown something. And I think that the size and power of those 2 guys, I think they could be an effective duo. I really do. I think that we're probably not talking about the Linval Joseph type of level of dominance from either one of these guys, but can you play the same way that, Harrison Phillips and Jonathan Bullard and Jerry Tillery, like those guys did in 2024 when this team was great at stopping the run? I think that they can. They've shown that. And then if you can add in your Caleb Banks to rush the passer, show your size and quickness, well, that would be a nice rotation. But as of right now, I think that Redmond, Levi Drake, and Ty Ingram Dawkins would be starting the game if it was week 1 today. And we would see Caleb Banks play only a handful of snaps. The game is not starting today, but that's how it would be. Outside linebacker, what is Jake Golday's role is my question. He is inside, he is outside. Maybe you just call it Flores. You just call it some teams will call a versatile player like a star or whatever, or a joker or something like that. I think Jake Golday can do either one of those things depending on what they need for a given play. But I don't just mean role as in inside or outside. I also mean how much will he play? Because he is getting first team reps every single day. And, they don't want to give Andrew Van Ginkel all the reps because he's old. But, to see Golday be the one that they throw in there as opposed to maybe Eric Wilson or somebody else, I think it says something about where he's at. And my comment is, you still need a pure pass rusher. I've liked Tyler Batty. I've liked Bo Richter. I think that room, Cam Stewart, has impressed for some of these young players. I just don't know if any one of these guys is a line them up on the edge, fire off the ball, go chase the quarterback. I don't know if any of them really fits that bill if Dallas Turner were to go down. Inside linebacker, still wondering about a Blake Cashman extension. He's been such a huge part of this defense for them over the last couple of years. His contract is up. They did Brian O'Neill at the very beginning of training camp. We have seen other extensions through the years, TJ Hawkinson, Xavier Rhodes, that happen in the middle of training camp. But he's practicing a lot and it doesn't look like there's any sort of holdout or anything like that. So I'm curious if they have plans to give him an extension or just play it out and kind of see what happens. And maybe Jake Golday and the way that he's playing has given them some promise there at that position that they've got the next young player. So we'll see there. I think it's the deepest unit. This is my comment on the defense because you have Cashman, Wilson, Golday. You can move up Jamal Adams if you want him to at the linebacker position, and Ivan Pace. If Ivan Pace, who's played a lot of football for this team, is the quote worst player in the room, that's pretty darn good because he has shown that he can play linebacker. And if that's your guy who you're talking about fourth, this part of the defense I think is the most solid at the linebacker position. At the cornerback spot, the question is Charles Demings going to be CB3? Because they have James Pierre and teams do tend to trust veteran players. But James Pierre has never really been a starter. He's been a rotational player for a couple seasons and was really good for Pittsburgh last year. But Demings, he is making plays all over the place. He had 2 more pass breakups today, even in an unpadded practice. And he had a great one that I had a really good view of in the red zone where Kyler Murray had it perfect. Bryson Nesbitt ran a little curl in the end zone and the throw is right on time. And Demings does not get boxed out by the tight end and sneaks his hand in there and makes a play. And it's like, man, this kid is everywhere every day. You don't just, from seeing, I don't know how many corners over the years, you don't just have pass breakups every single day like Charles Demings had in these practices. So, my comment is that the hype is real. It's not just like, oh, whatever, just for training camp. Oh, this is kind of fun. I think that there's real NFL potential starting skill there. And I wonder if they will have him in at nickel when they start the season or if it's going to be James Pierre and then see how it goes. And safety, is this the right configuration is my question because, well, Jay Ward is now banged up, but is Josh Metellus in this spot? Is he a better fit than he would be maybe in the box and having Jay Ward play in the back? Or do you need the position that is most communicative to be, and I say in the back as if, Harrison Smith did come up to the line of scrimmage all the time. So I'm sure we'll see that. But Harrison was also absolutely amazing at deceiving quarterbacks, understanding their snap counts, dropping back into his coverage as a 2-deep safety, which I don't know if you could do that with anybody else who doesn't have the football IQ and instincts. And this is not a shot at Metellus. We're talking all-timer here from Harrison Smith. But, I mean, can you really do that with him as a deeper safety, or is there a different configuration that makes more sense? And is it possible that Jamal Adams does end up being needed if there is an injury or whatever else? Like, he might actually be someone you kind of need if Jacoby Thomas is not ready or is banged up, and he has missed the last couple practices banged up. So, questions and comments. There you go for every single position. I'm going to get you a message from the sponsor, and then I'm going to take a little sip of Gatorade, and then we are going to answer your questions. So thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoyed that little different kind of twist segment there for a day where there wasn't a ton to update. Want to remind you guys about my friends at Brooklyn Betting. My goodness, it has been such a game changer for me. I have back troubles a lot of times, and Brooklyn Betting, the mattress that they sent called the Aurora Lux, has made it so much easier for me to get to sleep. I think one of the best parts is that even though it was cost effective, it's built really intentionally. This is not some mass produced mattress that you're going to have for 6 months and then toss aside. It feels solid, intentional, built to last, and it's built right here in the USA as well. So now my spine feels a lot better. I can actually get to sleep instead of taking hours to get to sleep because I'm dealing with the back issues, and I wake up with a lot more energy. And what I like is that we got exactly what we wanted and what we were looking for. Can't have any old mattress when you got some back issues. So they got the right size for us, the right feel for us. It was great and exactly what we wanted. So, but if it wasn't, then they have a 120-night comfort trial. And if I wasn't comfortable, I could swap it out and return the mattress hassle-free. So go to brooklynbetting.com and use my promo code PURPLE at checkout to get 30% off site-wide during their back-to-school sale. That is brooklynbetting.com, and the promo code there is PURPLE. So get that with my little code there. And even if you need some other stuff, doesn't even have to be a whole mattress. Just go check it out. They got a lot of stuff there. Okay, on to your questions and comments. Actually, I had 2 good ones yesterday that I didn't get to at the end of the show, but I want to start out with those. Bumaclat said Jalen Redmond extension before he has a career season. They might try. He's looked very, very good in training camp. I could see that happening. That could be like the Josh Metellus. Oh, I needed a sip of Gatorade. Could be like the Josh Metellus that they did a couple years ago, where after training camp, they knew he was kind of going to break out. They signed him to a nice little extension. I mean, Redmond's been a really good player. He looks really ready to go this season, and that might be what you have to rely on early, because it's going to be a lot more 3 strong guys stuffing up front and then everybody else making plays around them. And Redmond is a huge part of that. He can actually penetrate, get in the backfield, create quarterback pressures. He's kind of got to be the star up there. And Mark said, do you think that Flores will play more rookies on defense since it seems that he picked them? I don't know, but I think that if he's doing it, it's because they have really shown something right away. There have been times where I have wondered, and, a guy like a Caleb Evans, I'm not saying he's a star, but he was on the Panthers 53 and Asezi Atomowo and Vidarian Lowe. And there's been, other guys that the Vikings, Mekhi Blackman, other guys the Vikings had that were young players that there just didn't seem like a lot of buy-in there from the coaching staff. And I do think that opportunity is part of that, though, where when you look around for these young players at corner, you have 3 veterans, but after that, it's undrafted free agents. So Charles Demings has an up there. And when you look at the defensive line, they moved on from their 2 expensive defensive linemen. So welcome Dominique Orange, welcome Caleb Banks. Like, he's going to have to because of the circumstances. I don't know if it's as much plays into it whether they were picked by him or not. I mean, when you pick 3 defensive players in the first, second, and third round, was it 4? Yeah, let's see. It was Banks, Golday, Orange, and Thomas. I mean, you pick 4 players out of 5 draft picks in the first 3 rounds. I mean, you're probably looking at trying to fill some spots with them, right? And I think that Golday has shown a ton. I think that Demings has shown a ton. we'll see on Banks and Orange and where they come along soon. But when you have guys who are rookies who come in as a second round draft pick and show an aptitude for this defense, yeah, I think you're going to try to get them on the field a little bit more. So I don't know if it's necessarily who picked them as much as you pick them high. And what do I always go back to with the draft? You got to have picks. And if you draft, what did I say? 4 of them in the top 100-ish picks, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that some of those guys are going to be effective football players. So I think that, those things go into it. But this is a huge year for Brian Flores. I think it's going to be a really challenging year for him because he does have a lot of players who are inexperienced. There's rookies. There's guys who haven't taken on their roles. Even someone like Metellus has not taken on his role. Jay Ward has never taken on his role before at any type of longer period of time. And Golday hasn't, and Banks, and I mean, even someone like Levi Drake Rodriguez, he played last year, but he didn't play 700 snaps. Ty Ingram Dawkins played last year. He didn't play 500 snaps, which they might need from those guys. And that's going to take a lot of coaching from Brian Flores. But he kind of rigs the deck with drafting, developing, keeping high IQ players. So there should be confidence in Flores' ability to coach these guys up. But it leaves a lot of questions when you have as much youth as they do. Okay. Good to see that some of you got in here for the live show. Bad move, Space Cadet. Do the Vikings bring in a center to compete? I don't think so. I think this is Blake Brandel's job. It would be very hard to just go out and get somebody and say, oh, hey, could you just start at center? Like, who is that? Who is available at this stage in the game who would be capable of doing that? However, what I would say is, and look, trying to judge Michael Juergens from where I'm sitting, I could see the quarterback really well, the receivers, the defensive backs, and I could see the defensive linemen pretty well, but I cannot tell you flawlessly how many positive, negative reps that the backup center has had so far. And I think Juergens is a high IQ player, but what I would like is just someone who is experienced at both at guard and center that has been around the block a little bit. That's how the Vikings ended up with Joe Berger or Brett Jones. Remember Vikings legend Brett Jones? But Brett, he came in and he kept the train on the tracks. Dalton Reisner ended up starting for this team and playing pretty well, at least as a pass protector. That kind of guy is missing from this roster on the interior. You are one Donovan Jackson getting banged up away from a guy who's an undrafted free agent that played one game being in there, or Michael Juergens having to move to guard. That's something I think that they should really be looking for. Josh, can I ask Kendrick and Barr about Harrison Smith's fitness? They've been playing golf together. They have to know an odds on return. Okay, yeah. Well, I do want to try to have Anthony on the show at some point. When I talked to him for a story last year on Harrison Smith, I did say to him, I know you're going to be podcasting at some point. I know that you want the world to find out how, you have a really good personality, really smart guy, and I'm glad that those guys are doing it. It was cool to see them out at practice, talking to Jefferson, and they did a show with Eric Wilson that was really good. Wilson is such a quiet guy, but with his teammates, it's a little bit of a different vibe. So, yeah, you should check that out. With Kendricks and Barr, it's that's been cool, but also makes me feel a little bit old. You're like, wait a minute. Didn't Kendricks was in the league last year, but didn't these guys just play for the Vikings? And now you realize, no, it's a long time ago. Angel Dust, was I able to run into and interact with Chad Greenway? I saw him out there. I don't know Chad as well as the other guys, as like Eric and Anthony or Kyle Rudolph or guys like that, because I only covered 1 year of Chad Greenway, and it was 2016. It was miserable. His spot was kind of getting replaced. He wasn't too happy. The Vikings weren't, very happy in the locker room with them falling apart from 5-0. So I didn't really have an opportunity. You probably won't be surprised that the best years you're able to build longer term relationships with the guys where if you see each other or whatever that, they'll recognize you is when the team is good. So guys from the 2017 team, they'd be more apt, maybe, or 2024 team to remember chatting with me than guys who tried to wash away the memory. So no, but I mean, I know that, Chad is obviously a Viking legend and great guy and everything else. I just don't know him very well personally. Was there grease on the ball? I mean, it wasn't anybody that was really having a very intense practice, I didn't think, but I would have expected it to have a higher completion percentage than it did today. It's not one to take too seriously because it is a glorified kind of walkthrough type of practice. But coming off of yesterday's where Kyler did not have a great day and JJ did, as I chronicled, play much better yesterday, but I mean, you just want to see a little more consistency with some of these completions and also not overreact because we know that we are still a month away from the season and the practices where they start to turn the page start to come up as they get into the preseason. Jay, what was something positive from training camp today? I'm just going to keep saying Jayshon Jones and Charles Demings. I mean, these guys have really stood out. Jayshon Jones is one of those guys that you just have ultimate respect for. I mentioned Tristan Jackson. I know Lucky Jackson is still in the UFL. And look, there's not a lot of fans who are walking around with Lucky Jackson or Tristan Jackson jerseys. And you could tell how much Tristan loves coaching. You can really see it all over his face. Just had a chance to chat with him for a second today, and he really seems to love it. Those guys, they become future coaches most of the time, things like that. But sometimes if you catch enough footballs in training camp and preseason, you become a player and end up as, I'm not saying he's going to be Adam Thielen, but that's what Adam Thielen did, right? He just kept making plays. And Jones has clearly worked hard. He's one of the last guys off the field. One of the reasons that I haven't talked to Jayshon Jones is because he is literally one of the last guys off the field working out there every single day. And I got to at some point beat traffic and get back and prepare for the show. So I'm like, okay, one of these days I'm going to catch up with him for sure. And write about that and bring that back to you guys. But it just shows you how hard Jayshon Jones is working. And I think it's really paid off as he's made a ton of plays. He looks stronger than he's been in the past. He's just developed nicely under Keenan McCarthy. So he made a couple plays today. He's just had a really good camp so far. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree that now one thing that does happen is when they should catch more passes is what he said. And I do agree with that. It is when you get into the red zone drills, sometimes very condensed, very tight. And what you're usually doing is just the quarterback stands there. If it's not 11 on 11 in the red zone, stands there, drops back, everyone runs their route combinations. So it isn't like you can build the run off the pass like you actually do in the red zone. It's just a pure passing situation as if it was like third down and goal. And those are really hard. They're hard for both quarterbacks and there's the clock in your head kind of thing. So if they were doing that all the time, the completion percentage wouldn't be super high, but still you would have expected it to be a little higher than it was today. Kit says, is it just me or is the depth across the board better on this team than any other in the 2020s? Good question, Kit. Let me think. Certainly not 2020 or 2021. 2022, they were playing Duke Shelley, who was awesome in 2022, but still, that's not something we would have really expected in terms of the depth. 23 was not a deep team at all. That's when they were kind of tearing it down. 24 was a little bit light on the depth side as well because they hadn't drafted a lot or very well earlier. And then last year we kind of saw what happened, although Eric Wilson was depth last year and got in and played pretty well. And so was Dallas Turner. So maybe I'd have to adjust a little bit for that. Now, I think that what you might be thinking of is young depth, because if somebody like Eric Wilson is coming off your bench, then yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal depth to have Eric Wilson coming off your bench, but that's more of youth. I think I agree with you though, because there are a number of draft prospects. I mean, I don't know that the cornerback room has gone 4 deep, and I feel fairly confident with it going 4 deep at this point. I don't know when the last time it's gone 4 deep is. I don't know if it's ever gone 4 deep since I've covered the team, going back even to 2017, where it was the starters and then Mackenzie Alexander is probably the closest that it ever got there. But aside from that, I mean, it's been oftentimes 3 at best, but now the fact that James Pierre is here and Demings, linebacker position is definitely deep. The depth on the D-line for young players is pretty good, because if you consider that I've liked the way their interior D-line has looked without Banks or Orange even getting really in the game, that says something. Now, it's not proven depth, though. It's guys who I think are trending in the right direction and are younger. So there's that. And I would say the same thing at safety, where, I mean, you have Jamal Adams here for depth. That's pretty good, I think. But even the fact that it's younger, it's Jay Ward is younger. Theo Jackson's probably a veteran now at this point, but Jacoby Thomas is younger. I'm not totally counting out Jacob Thomas, who has looked springy and has gotten a lot of reps out there with some of these injuries, but probably a practice squad guy. But the fact that you have some of these younger players at these positions, I think you're right. I think I agree with that. Kit says, curious how the hype from these rookies like Demings and Golday compares to past rookies like Diggs on the other side of the ball. Kendricks is rookies. Unfortunately, I was not here yet for the 2015 class. Now, I do know that Mr. Mankato was invented once upon a time for Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. So I think that they realized, from just what I've heard other people talk about, Diggs pretty quickly showed that he was going to be a guy during training camp. And Kendricks, I remember hearing Mike Zimmer talk about how he felt like Kendricks had too much coffee, was what he was thinking with him. And then, Danielle Hunter got onto the field, made some plays his first year, but he needed a little more development. But usually, just in my experience with younger players, even if they don't have a great rookie season, you should see something pretty quickly. And an example would be Dallas Turner, where in his first training camp, you could see the quickness, the lightning, and the dexterity, is that a good word? Or like hand-eye coordination, where he would be doing drills where he's dropping back and catching balls and looked like a tight end. Like, he looks like someone who could have been an all-state basketball player, like a really natural athlete, fluid athlete, very, very explosive. So you saw that right away. Delvin Cook for me was the most obvious that I've ever seen of any of the rookies, because all the players were just eyes popping out of their heads at his acceleration, his ability to read the blocks, his power, his strength. They were all talking about, after practices and stuff like this. This is ridiculous how good this guy is. So that's the one that stands out the most. But Demings is close, which is weird because he's a 5th round pick, but he is close of a guy who's come out every day and done something. It's just not often you see that. And Golday, we'll see on him, but it's certainly stood out to me how fluid he is, how prepared he seems to be in this defense, how hard he's working at it. So yeah, like usually if a guy's going to turn out to be something pretty good, there aren't too many, put it the other way around. There aren't too many times that I have not seen anything at all from somebody in their first year, and then suddenly at a different time, 3 years down the road, oh my gosh, that guy. I mean, we're talking usually day 3 guys if that does happen. Like Josh Metellus, to tell you the truth, his 2020 was, who knows, right? Like we only had a couple of open practices. It was miserable. We had to stand 10 million miles away from the practice because it was 2020. So I don't remember Metellus's, but he got cut out of his first camp. But usually if there's something there, then we'll see it. And with Jefferson, it was a little weird too, because it was also 2020 and he missed time with COVID. So he didn't start to emerge until the end of camp. But even then we saw it at the end of camp. We saw his potential. So normally, yeah, with anybody who's going to be good, there's evidence. Axton, no, it was not pads. It was shells today. Mr. Maris says, I don't think it's just you, referring to Kit. Feel like the depth is looking pretty good across the board. Maybe I'm just too optimistic. No, I mean, I really think that there are a lot of players who they have either drafted or had a chance to develop or have experience. So Jamal Adams, Ivan Pace, these are experienced players, but just not so much at the edge. And that's where I'd probably say, oh, that's my question there. The edge doesn't have any experience behind the starting guys, so that one's pretty light at the moment. But, overall, it's at least got intriguing players, even if they're not proven, and guys who might be trending in the right direction. Jay, since neither Murray or JJ had a good day, how did Wentz play today? I think he may have gotten 2 series. Carson's just not taking a lot of reps. He doesn't need to. He wasn't even here at this point last year. So Carson is basically vibing. I'm sure he's doing more than that. He'll get in there and he'll whip it around. And gosh, the guys who are on the third team should be thanking him every day because they have a veteran quarterback. And he's looked great. I mean, as far as how he's throwing the ball, his understanding of the offense, I think he's a really good quality backup quarterback to have. He's looked totally fine to me, but he probably threw 4 passes today, if that. Gatino's Christmas channel. Who is the pleasant surprise of camp so far from everything I've been hearing? It's Bartholomew. Yeah, I think Bartholomew would be, if you're asking pleasant, that's probably it because, gosh, imagine getting drafted. Everyone in your family's so excited for you. Guys, I'm going to rookie minicamp, and then you get hurt, and you're out for an entire year. It had to be miserable for him last season not to play. And, he's been asked about it, and he hasn't really been, hugging us and sobbing, but I think you can really tell, that was hard, man. And so he's come back, he's catching balls. That's a good story. And I would also say Ty Ingram Dawkins has been a pleasant surprise too, because I would have expected by the 9th day of training camp that Caleb Banks was going to be taking most of the reps. And I don't know how long it's going to take until we get there, or if we will get there in this training camp, because Ty Ingram Dawkins has done so well. And Ingram Dawkins is a great athlete. He's long, he's got strength, he's got some burst to him, and he might just be a good fit with what they want to do and then start to mix in Caleb Banks. And when he's really ready, then he's really ready. But I think that those two guys that we kind of wrote off a little bit, Ingram Dawkins and Levi Drake Rodriguez, with the new shiny objects, have come out and proven, hey, we can play, man. And they've done a good job there. Ken, maybe we just have a good defense. Ken, defense is probably the hardest thing to predict in the entire NFL because there's so many things that are interconnected and so many factors to it that will impact you one way or another. And we saw this last year where you signed 2 players who didn't really fit that well, and it took you a while to get their fit down. So that was a struggle in Allen and Hargrave. They had major injuries in the first game of the year where Van Ginkel goes out and Cashman goes out, and you're like, okay, those are 2 of the most important players. And Harrison Smith had a health issue and he missed time last year. 3 of the most important and most communicative players in this defense are just out, and it's the first day. And that can happen anytime. If you stay healthy, look at Seattle. They didn't have anybody out for the entire Super Bowl on the defensive side, and lo and behold, they're pretty darn good. So it might be that you have a good defense if things come together, if people gel well. You have to communicate. There's so much interconnectedness. It's not like one guy could just take things over. And Dallas Turner, who I think has looked really good, he's got to be really good in this season, or their ceiling is going to be limited. I think if he doesn't get double-digit sacks, your ceiling is probably limited as a defense. And the safety position still does kind of scare me a little bit in terms of playmaking on the football with Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus and Jay Ward. None of these guys are Harrison Smith, right? So it could be. And with Brian Flores, you always lean toward that it will be. But I think there's a lot of things to be resolved before we really know. Kit says this battle seems less of a matter of who's best and a matter of who sucks least. Well, it's only 9 days in, and I think that Murray on the total, if we looked at positive throws, completion percentage, all those things, your overall impression of Kyler Murray's practices would be, it's been sometimes really, really good, and sometimes just kind of bleh. And today is just kind of bleh. It wasn't horrible by any means. And if he gets, I counted the pass interference as an incomplete pass. That one was right on the money to Justin Jefferson. He just gets grabbed and he would have caught it, would have been a good throw. And the other one that I highlighted, and then you're closer to 50%. But the thing is that we are treating a training camp that I would normally be watching Michael Jurgens. I would normally be watching Jacob Thomas and just trying to scan and look over at different players, receivers. Well, let me watch this guy run the route. Let me go watch one-on-ones. Let me go watch this. And I try still, But when you're tracking every single pass, it's very different than the past. So my point of references are hard here because I certainly remember in 2022, Kirk Cousins adapting to this offense and needing half of camp to get there, and Sam Darnold needing half of camp to get there. So there's been days where Kyler has shown exactly what he could do in this offense and days where it just has not clicked the way you would expect it to click. Also, I think he'd really like to get Jordan Addison back with the first team. Jake, what is your color panic concern meter with the lack of consistency so far? Yeah, I would not go blue. I would probably say I'll go yellow. I will go, it's in the yellow. So, blue, yellow, orange, red. I would go, it's in the yellow. It's being noted that the practices have not really picked up. But I even remember in 2024 where Darnold had a pretty terrible night practice, threw a horrible interception or great. I can't say which one, right? Because it's still the Vikings. Great interception by Andrew Van Ginkel, but a horrible interception for the quarterback to Andrew Van Ginkel. And it was like a pick six kind of moment. And he just struggled and didn't look great in that practice. So these early camp practices, trying to judge every single play as they're still in that phase where they're learning the offense and they've only been in pads with 3 really hard practices so far. I don't want to start going, slam the panic button. Murray's inaccurate. All of a sudden, he doesn't know how to throw a football anymore. It's more of like, okay, well, soon this should start to be more consistent on a daily basis, because one day it might be stuff he's more comfortable with. One day it might be stuff that he's less comfortable with, right? There's reasons, but you want to see it be more consistent. He's clearly had the 2 best days far and away that if you went to those practices, you'd be like, okay, top 10 offense. But then there's been other days that you're like, that's not how it's supposed to look. So yeah, yellow, definitely yellow. Battle of the Midway is funny. Jake, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate each quarterback's performance in camp thus far? I would say that Kyler has probably been a 5.5, maybe a 6, and JJ's probably been a 4. Where I have not thought that McCarthy has been a travesty. It's just that I don't think he has had as many big days as he had in his previous camps. It really helped that the last camp, the last padded practice, he was pretty solid. I think he needed that pretty badly, because I think if he didn't have that one, I might go at 2.5. But he did show a little more confidence there, kind of regressed back today. But again, not weighing that one quite as heavily. He's completed a fair number of passes. It's been a lot of underneath stuff, and he has not looked like his processing speed has been sped up to the point where it needed to be early in this training camp to make things interesting. That speed is still a little slow with everything. And when you watch him next to a veteran quarterback, and Wentz comes in the game too, and you go, yeah, it just needs to be faster. Like, these guys get it. There's 2.5 seconds to throw the football. But I would not say that Murray was a 7 or an 8 or anything like that. I would say it's probably a shade above average, but that's why we try to do this every day and then assess in the bigger picture, like, how far are we away? Because if it's in the yellow right now for concern about it, about the inconsistency, but if you go into, in the coming weeks, there'll be like 3 practices and a preseason game and so forth. And if we go out there and it's still a struggle and they're not getting completions, then yeah, we're going to start going like, I don't know, man. But I always like to keep everything in perspective, just in general, with little tales from the past. Right before the last practice we saw from Kirk Cousins in 2022, last practice, he threw 5 picks. 5. It was horrible. It was insane. He came off the practice field just looking totally shaken, like he had seen a ghost, or like he'd seen Max Crosby. And although I give him credit for getting in Max Crosby's face, I appreciate that Kirk is willing to do that. The old man's not afraid. But he came out in week 1, was awesome against the Green Bay Packers, which does remind me, FanDuel question of the day. The Vikings are 1.5. Let me actually remind myself. I wrote it down. Hold on. The Vikings are 1.5 point underdogs on FanDuel for week 1 against the Packers. So I want the biggest question that you would have to answer before the end of camp to have confidence in a week 1 win. That is the FanDuel question of the day. Okay, back to your scale. I love scales. Pie charts take a little more work. Scales I love. Anytime you guys want to use scales, do it. Gatino's Christmas channel. At this point, as a Vikings fan, I don't care who wins the job, just hoping that either of them is competent. How dare you? I'm sorry, I can't help it every time someone has a very rational thought about the quarterback position. But no, you guys have been great in the comment section. It's just funny, you know. But no, I mean, look, competent is what they're looking for. I think at the beginning. And maybe with the way that this is going with some of the inconsistency, that's what they're going to have. They're going to have these first couple of games where you mitigate a little bit with Murray and you try to get accurate throws to Justin Jefferson and move the football and get a scramble and run the football well. But the thing is with this season, and this is why I do believe that we are getting to the point where you got to give him all the reps. If he's not consistent, what would help solve that is probably more reps. And there's really no question in my mind who the better quarterback is right now at this point in their careers. And I don't know that there's any question if for anybody who's watched every practice who the better quarterback is at this moment in their careers. I don't know what's going to happen into their futures, but the more you take away from him and give to somebody else with Justin Jefferson or with even the second team, the more you're going to be asking that question if there is consistency. Like, does he just need more reps in this offense? That might be the case. It also, might be a good thing that Murray was pushed with some competition, but all right, now that's enough and move it over. We'll see if it's tomorrow night, if that announcement gets made. But man, they came to my head like, well, if Murray, only takes 2/3 of the first team reps tomorrow, if there's no announcement, and then we go into the preseason week and then has a bad practice and then JJ has a good one, like, are we still doing this kind of thing? That's why maybe tomorrow is the time to do it. If they do, I'll be live right after practice. And if they don't, I'll be live right after practice. So make sure you listen. Make sure you get a little nap in the middle of the day. It truly won't be that late, but it's after dark. And it gets a little crazy around here after 9 o'clock in the comment section. Mike, hope to see Banks start to take full reps soon. He needs reps badly, and he's been cleared by the best doctors in the world. Hey, the thing about that, I will say, like, we made fun of Rob for it or whatever, but they do have one of the best specialists in the world at Twin Cities Orthopedics. So that's my understanding of that comment. It wasn't, we all kind of may have thought, well, man, shouldn't the best doctor in the world be doing like brain surgery? But, expert on feet, that would be, and not Rex Ryan. So I would like to see that as well. The ramp up period, I totally understand from Caleb Banks. And I have seen a little bit of quickness from him. You see the power from him. It's there. He stands out from everybody else. But if he cannot be out there to the point where he's taking rep after rep after rep after rep, even with the second team, then you're not going to be able to play him much right off the bat. We are a month away. It feels like we've been doing this for a while because we've been doing live chats every single night for 2 hours and everything. So it feels like camp has gone on forever, but it is maybe just the beginning. We have also seen, though, and this is why it's really important with LDR and with Ty Ingram-Dawkins, we have seen guys like Will Fries and Christian Darrisaw talk about how not having that offseason impacted them. And they do need to take it carefully with Caleb Banks. It might be more of a ramp up period than we expected. Something to watch. That's funny. Ryder Mike, I just want to remind you, because you said worst fears realize we have 4 quarterbacks and none of them could be average. I just want to remind you, just 2 seasons ago, by every metric, Kyler Murray was a top 12 to 15 quarterback just 2 seasons ago. And last year he played 5 games. He won twice as many games as a guy who played 12 games following him. So I don't know that a practice on a Saturday with no pads where he wasn't very consistent would be the worst fears realized just yet. Like, this guy has played in real games that are game planned for, not installing offenses that aren't complete yet and running 7-on-7s. So there is, I agree, Jenny, there is time. There is time. There is lots of stuff to still learn. Mr. Mayor still high on Kyler. Just need a quarterback that isn't one-dimensional like McCarthy. I mean, at this moment, I'm not sure what that dimension is. Can't win games when all your throws are late. Oh, you mean like, yeah, the one speed thrower. You're right. Yeah. Well, it's the hard part about doing the job in training camp. And I'm not asking for your tears, but the hard part about deciding what it all means is that sometimes with this stuff, with practices and training camp storylines of preseason, seeing nothing is almost even more valuable than seeing what's actually happening. Because if you just look at Kyler Murray's career, when he's had a good team around him, or even when he's had an adequate team around him, he's been a top 15 quarterback. So there should be still very strong confidence, and there's been great days as well, that he can be that. But one of the issues with his career for me is the ups and downs. So when I see something out there that kind of matches up with what he's been, where, you know, 1 week he'll have a perfect passer rating. If you watch the 2024 game against the Rams, you can have your eyes pop out of your head. But then there are other times where it's inconsistent. The game that he played against the Vikings in 2024 was really not that impressive. He kept them in the game and they probably should have won, but it wasn't the best game we've seen him play. This is where a defense, this is where a kicker, this is where a running game is going to matter, I think, a lot to Kyler Murray. So I don't want to overreact and say, oh, he can't get it. Oh my gosh, he's toast. Because again, at this point, with other quarterbacks who have learned his offense, O'Connell's, they were not blowing us away in training camp through the first 9 days going into the night practice. That just has never happened under Kevin O'Connell. I mean, 2023 Kirk was looking pretty good because he knew the offense, but Darnold and Kirk learning it for the first time, they kind of looked like this. So there's got to be a turn of a corner at some point. Josh, how important will it be for these struggling quarterbacks, or optimistic are you about the new run scheme? Will it be revealed in the preseason? No, definitely not. And definitely not in the preseason. They are going to run the most base of base stuff to make sure that they're not revealing any of their tricks of the trade. And I really even think for us, in front of us out there in the practice field, that they are installing some stuff that clearly is a little bit different. But I don't think they're going to show all the bells and whistles until actually week 1. So I won't spoil the Christmas present for everyone. But to your question, how important is it? I mean, I think it's enormous. It's enormous to be able to stay on track as an offense, even if your quarterback is not at his best. And I also think it is the best friend ever to a quarterback to be able to run, because you just draw everyone's eyes into the backfield. If you're a defense, you hate to see when an offense is running successfully, because you start leaning forward. You start trying to crash in and make a play, getting a little over anxious because you're getting frustrated that the other team can run. And then there's when the play action hits off of that, the bootlegs and so forth. And I also think that it controls the clock. It controls the field position to some extent. If you can get a couple of first downs running the football, you've got a lot of time of possession, and you know, all those benefits are there that help mitigate the issues with the quarterback. And the fact that they haven't had that, like imagine the 2023 season. Imagine the 2023 season, except for with the 2020 running game. Like they're in the playoffs easily, right? I don't think there's any question about it in 2023 with Josh Dobbs, where they've struggled to run and give him a different option. And then Nick Mullins comes in again. They struggled to run. I think they did well in one of those games against Cincinnati with Ty Chandler, but even then, like not a consistent running game at any point. They may have won some of the games early in the season with Kirk still in there, but they, end up a below average team because they just had to rely on the quarterback so much during that season. So it could be similar here, where if the defense has its issues early on getting on the same page, you have really, really talented quarterbacks the first 3 weeks of the season. These guys, say what you will about Jordan Love, say what you will about Caleb Williams. There's critiques there, and Baker Mayfield. All of them have the capability to go absolutely nuts and talent. 2 first overall draft picks and another guy with a monster arm. Like this is a challenge right away. You need to control those games. And I think that they're putting the effort in to try to do that, because you're probably not just going to say, Kyler Murray, go beat Jordan Love in a shootout, go beat Caleb Williams in a shootout, go beat Baker Mayfield in a shootout. it's a lot to ask. It's not that he's not proven capable at times, but you'd much rather just control those games and force those guys to be under the pressure. But the Packers run, and so do the Bears really well. I mean, that's why you want to control the ball, because you know they can if they want to. Let's see. JJ, by the stats, has been better in the intermediate for days. Makes you think. Yeah, I don't know for days. I mean, I think he was 3 for 7 today, and he was better yesterday. So it doesn't really, no, actually kind of doesn't really make me think too much. And when the first team reps have been 45 to 16 or something over the last 3 practices before this, and then this was just in shells, which they've always given even, I'm not with you. I'm not with you, man, because also here's the other thing too. The ball is coming out slow from McCarthy, really dreadfully slow today. I don't think one good practice yesterday, and it was pretty solid. I don't know that would completely change things when it comes to the intermediate stuff. And there's been 2 practices where Kyler Murray was just magnificent everywhere on the field. So, I mean, I know that some of you are really hoping for it, really hoping that this, bus turns around. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. I think that we've probably gone to the point with all the reps that, Kyler Murray is still very, very likely to be the quarterback. But if he really struggles tomorrow night and then they don't announce it, and then we go into the next 3 practices and it's really problematic, it could at that point start to make the coaching staff reconsider and make them think that they need more time. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could. But in terms of one practice where he was good in the intermediate, that doesn't really change a lot when the rest of the practices have not been that way. Mike, don't really understand the Jacoby Thomas pick when we have no one on the team able to play, to competently play deep safety. We don't need another Metellus. We need some speed in our secondary. No. Jacoby Thomas he was like a playmaking free safety. I don't think that Jacoby Thomas is necessarily, he had a bunch of interceptions and stuff in college. I don't know. I mean, I can look it up. Why don't we do that? Whenever I can find some data to decide, because maybe you're right, then on something, we should always just look it up. We have the time and we have the tools. So let's go to PFF and let's find out where Jacoby Thomas played in college. Because I think of him as much more of like a playmaking safety, flying around, catching the football, getting interceptions, than I do as someone who's living in the box. But I haven't looked since probably draft night, so let me go check. All right, so he was a blitzer. He was a blitzer for sure at Miami. He blitzed 44 times, but where did he line up? Okay, so the answer it was a little bit split. Actually, it was a little bit split. He was playing more at free safety, a little bit in the slot, and then a good amount in the box. So 354 as a free safety and 283 in the box. 5 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, though, is what I was thinking about when I watched his tape. Was he was flying around and making plays. So I don't know where he projects, if he projects as more of a strong safety, if that's how they view him. We just have not seen very much of Jacoby Thomas playing with the first team, actually really at all, during this camp. And maybe they are teaching him to be more of a Metellus type of role. Maybe they are teaching him to be more of a strong safety. But I think of him as someone who I believe that they would want to eventually pair with Josh Metellus to go around and get picks and make plays. But I guess I'm not sure where that's going to end up working out. I understand where you're coming from. I mean, if you were looking for that guy, then Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is probably somebody who would have been a playmaker. Dylan Thieneman was really that guy, though. Well, I guess, yeah, they talked about McNeil-Warren as being a little closer to the line of scrimmage, but he was a playmaker too. So those guys, if you were going to draft one high, and there were other ones like Bud Clark, who was a playmaker, was more of a free safety, I think. I think they went with the guy that they felt had really good instincts. That's at least my understanding, and made a lot of plays on the football. So, Kit, can Jayshon Jones be more than Lucky Jackson athletically? That is the question. I think where Jay Sean has, I think, strength would be the thing that I would look at for Jay Sean Jones that would be over those other guys, because when he has to go through contact, that you notice it. Like, you notice that he's able to push through contact and still make plays, where I think that was a bit of an issue with Lucky. And I also think he's got better hands. I don't see Jay Sean Jones dropping very many passes. He's got my attention this year more than ever, I think. Mr. Mayor, this time 2024, Darnold was a bit spotty and then turned out great. Kyler's going to be fine. And it did take him some time to really lock into the offense in the season. That's why, the question about the run game, like, definitely you need to see that run game come along. Josh, how do you rank or rate the chemistry with Jefferson, with JJ, and with Kyler Murray? Who do you think Jets wants throwing him the football this year? I mean, it's 0 with JJ McCarthy. It's just 0. Like, there hasn't been any passes between those two. I don't mean there's literally been no passes between those two, but it's very, very few. During 11-on-11s, 7-on-7s, very few connections between McCarthy and Jefferson in this camp. And there's been a ton with Kyler Murray. Pretty much every day they've had completed passes. Even Murray had a tough day yesterday and hit one of his best passes to Jefferson going to the sideline. They had a huge day together where I think there was 5 different times they connected in 11-on-11s. And through this camp, the Saturday, no, it wasn't the Saturday. It was last Friday, where Kyler had an up and down day, but he ended the practice with a great throw to Jefferson on a deep post. And I mean, it's been pretty good, I think, with Murray and Jefferson so far. And with JJ, I'm not even sure how many targets he's had throwing to Jefferson, because a lot of times when he's been in with the ones, it's been underneath stuff. And that's one of the things we talk about. What are the odds or the chances that we get an announcement fairly soon that it's Kyler Murray? Well, that's a major part of it, because you would have to re-engineer this whole thing on the fly if you were going back the other direction and get McCarthy on the same page as Jefferson, which they never were in the real games. That's why it feels really pushed that direction. And whether it's tomorrow night or next week, I'm still expecting that to happen. But if Kyler doesn't play well at all, then I suppose it could change. Jay, who's been your favorite rookie that you have interviewed this year since training camp started? I mean, Charles Demings is in a league of his own as an interview. He is very sharp, but he's also got a great way with words, so he's probably number one. But I really liked talking with Jake Golday too. A very bright kid. Did a great job at explaining things, which I'm always paying attention to. Dan, would you call the overall QB play meh so far during camp? Yeah, I would say so. I would say that it has not been impressive on the whole, like the totality. There have been days where it's been impressive for Kyler. There has been a day where it was good for JJ McCarthy. I would say at least 3 for Murray that you're like, okay, or 2 that were wow, and some other ones that were okay. And I mean, today is just not one to really judge for either quarterback, because they weren't going through, with pads on, but it still wasn't what you'd want to see. You want to see that ball never hitting the ground. So, I would say, yeah, but the high end has been pretty darn good 9 days in, and we'll have to see where it goes from here. 5.5 and a 4 for the 2 quarterbacks is not really anything beyond meh, I think. Norris Force Kyler will be awesome. He's splitting the reps, even though he shouldn't be. Then that gets old and tiresome. I think there is a section of the fans starting to wonder how much longer it's going to go on, because if Kyler is going to be your quarterback, meh and inconsistent is not what you're going to want to see for the rest of training camp. It needs to be, all right, gas pedal down. You're a quarterback, and off we go. And I don't think it's going to be too many more days until that happens. Is that Marceline? People forget McCarthy was 22 last year. Let's not act like the book is closed on the kid. Agree with the second part. I don't think people forget his age, which is brought up nonstop. But yeah, I don't think the book is closed. I think that we are very close to the book being closed on this quarterback competition, but I don't think that the book is closed on JJ McCarthy's career. That comes down to him. It just comes down to him. Does he want to keep fighting for this? Does he want to give everything he's got to every day, even if he's running scout team? Then he's got a chance. And if he feels entitled and feels like it's everybody else's fault but his, then he doesn't have a chance. And I've seen that before in my career covering quarterbacks that thought that they were the greatest quarterback of all time and nobody could say a thing to them and, whatever else. It's like, well, that's not how this works, Mr. Mayor, I agree. Mr. Mayor says not illegal for young players to be good, especially when they have an absolute embarrassment of riches around them. But everybody is on a different timeline at the quarterback position. And I think this team just misjudged the spot that J.J. McCarthy was in last year in terms of how far along he was going to be. And then now we're kind of fully really realizing, it's not there yet either. And there will have to be a lot more reps taken by J.J. McCarthy before he's got a chance. So are you willing as J.J. McCarthy to take a long journey back to being a starter eventually at some point, whether it's here late in this season, whether it's here next season, whether it's somewhere else this season, whether it's somewhere else next season? You got to have the stomach for that, because there's quarterbacks like EJ Manuel and Christian Ponder who are out of this league pretty quickly after they do not succeed at first. Let's see. Mr. Mayor, the O-line was average. Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't have to argue over like whether he was wronged or anything else. Like we're beyond all that stuff, all the context and everything else. To this year during training camp, there are things that still are cropping up that or would be unacceptable during the game. Mike might have the only safety room in the league without someone capable of running under a 5-second 40. That's funny. Theo has good long speed. I think Jay Ward is quick, and Metellus has been more of a hybrid linebacker. The long speed is a question for me when you're running down deep balls. I do look at it and I wondered if they would get somebody who was more of a free safety career-wise that had been more proven, but I think they're showing a ton of belief in Theo Jackson, and with a better run stuffing defensive line, that could help Theo Jackson quite a bit, because those plays where he's coming downhill and just running right into running backs at full speed, you're like, whoa, that's really hard to do. Jim, what's going on with the possible practice squad players like linebacker John Ross from Michigan? The third team guys, it's going to be all about the preseason, man. They just do not get any time out there during practice. And that's what's going to make it really hard. They go through all the individuals and all the team drills and everything else, but it's not going to be easy for them once they get out there. But that's where you got to show something. So if you're John Ross or about 15 other guys that are on the bubble of making the practice squad, have good preseason games, catch the team's attention, catch our attention, and then you've got a chance. Then that's when we can start really talking about it. Norse Force, the splitting reps is so irritating. Embarrassing BS gets frustrating and annoying. He'll look much better when taking every rep. I mean, I do think eventually when that happens that he will look more consistent, or at least we'll get bigger sample sizes on a practice, as opposed to, well, here's 12 passes and hey, they only complete, or today, like, yeah, here's 14. Like, well, how about getting them like 30? Now, when it comes to his arm and wearing guys out in camp, that might be a real thing with a quarterback, that you can kind of wear them down, and maybe that's part of this. I don't really know, but I think soon. I think it has to be soon. Yep. Yeah, man, look, it's always funny to me, Marauder, you've been very pro JJ. I know that you've been very anti Kyler. I remember everybody's name and what their angles are and everything else. But the one thing that this has not been, actually with JJ, I have had non-completions that I have given positive plays to. Every day is on video. You could go back and watch them. I have talked about drops where I've given routine passes to, or positive passes to drops. I mean, it's just, what I'm trying to do is create a way of presenting the quarterback competition in the most objective way I can, which is writing down every single play, where it went, and then having multiple people comment on, pros and cons and everything else. That's what I've tried to do. And, it's just interesting that people who clearly have an agenda then want to say that other people have agendas. It's like, buddy, I have this job, whether JJ or Kyler starts. I am going to Lambeau Field to cover the Minnesota Vikings, whether Kyler or JJ starts. I covered them when Josh Dobbs started. I covered them when Nick Mullins started. I covered them when Sam Bradford started. And I covered them when Case Keenum started. And I'll cover them when Timmy Slim Jim, the next first round draft pick, starts from Rutgers. Okay? Like, it doesn't matter to me, man. Just trying to give you the facts. It's just always odd to me that people who clearly come into the comment section with an agenda then say, you have an agenda. Like, what would my agenda be? It's when they give 3 times as many first team reps to the guy who has a much better career. It's not exactly shocking, man. So anyway, Mr. Mayor, energy for JJ McCarthy is intrinsically linked to how embarrassing it was to watch the worst quarterback in the league last year not be able to throw the ball to the best wide receiver in the league. And that's what comes to mind a lot when it's, hey, if JJ has a good day and Kyler has a bad day, will they start to change their minds? How do you ignore what happened just last year on the real football field, or what's happened in Kyler's career at times in the real football games? Like, they've played against him before. They've seen how good he can be. 2021, I don't know if any players still here, but this organization saw Kyler Murray beat them in the desert. He had a really good game. He threw a 80-yard touchdown or something. Like, I don't know, man. All that has to play into it of what you actually saw during the real games from both of these quarterbacks. And that's where I think a lot of people would say, well, why did they really do this anyway? And I think that Kevin O'Connell wanted to give a fair chance to JJ McCarthy. He wanted to develop JJ McCarthy. And I also think that he really wanted to push Kyler Murray. I think he wanted to say to Kyler Murray, maybe in Arizona, it was your show and you could walk in the door and you're the guy and you never had to question that. But I want you to earn it. I want you to fight for it. I want it to be hard. And there probably is truth in the concept that making things hard and creating barriers to break down can make people better at sports or whatever else it might be. If you're trying to climb a mountain, maybe you don't just walk up the stairs to get better at it. Maybe you put a 50-pound backpack on so it's easier when you actually climb the mountain. So I think that was part of it. And when you come in with a reputation of, well, is this guy really prepared? And how fair that is, I think, is a question. But if that's the reputation, it's like, well, I mean, let's force the issue. Let's force him to be ready to go and prepared. And he's looked prepared to me. I think it's actually just been some of the accuracy that has been a little bit of the issue. Not even really the timing or where he threw the football over these last couple of days. And that's what's been a little odd to me of like, Hagar, both quarterbacks are mid. You're going to have to show me that, man. One of the quarterbacks you could say is, and the quarterback tiers have shown that, or above average or mid being Kyler Murray, but the other quarterback mid when would be a real question. So anyway, I think that's why that they've done it, is to push Kyler, to give an equal opportunity to JJ McCarthy, allow him to develop. You may need him at some point in the season. So you want him to be ready. You want to push him as much as you possibly can. And I think now we have probably reached the point where it's about time to go in the direction of your starting quarterback and get them ready. They have given hundreds of first team plays, or over 100 for sure, to Judd's got the exact count on that. But I think I looked at Judd's thing the other day because he counted first team reps. I've just done the passes myself because I figured, well, it's just handing off to somebody. Either quarterback could do that. But it was like 150 to 150. So 150 practice plays with first or second teamers for JJ McCarthy is a pretty good opportunity to develop. But it's probably just that time to move on. You're right, Mike, that Flores did bench Theo, and it's hard to have much confidence there. I agree with the safety position. Big questions. No doubt about it. First name, last name, who would you say is likely to be starting one defensive interior? Dawkins, Levi, Drake, Rodriguez, and Redmond. Yeah, I do. I do think that that's going to be game one against the Green Bay Packers, the interior, the D-line with those three guys, which in some ways is a little bit on the exciting side of, wow, like this is a young group here, a very athletic young group of those three guys, where Levi Drake is a really good story. Somebody's a 7th round pick out of Texas A&M Commerce that all of a sudden is getting his chance to start against the Green Bay Packers at US Bank Stadium. How cool is that? And Jalen Redmond, UFL, Tyne Group Dawkins, 5th round development type draft pick. Like, that's really good for them. And then that's as of right now. And then I think the other guys will rotate. You'll see Dominique Orange in certain situations. You'll see Caleb Banks in certain situations. Maybe they get him out there for pass rush specifically and take LDR off of the field. I think that's how it'll start. And what, if you're the Vikings, you hope for is where it will go from there is that Caleb Banks just starts to take over and get better and better. I think in the next week, I'd like to see more of it. And we do know, and I believe Flores mentioned it or KOC, that Banks is expected to play in the preseason, which I think he really needs. So we'll be able to assess him there during some actual game action. That'll be good. I don't know. Bredovics, I don't think this has been dysfunctional. I really don't. And I don't think they're not sold on either guy at the moment. I think that it's been pretty clear from the first team reps which guy they've been more sold on. But I don't know where the dysfunction is. You got a quarterback who ranks in the top 15 to 20 quarterbacks in the NFL for $1 million. If you want to talk about the dysfunction of letting Sam Darnold go, then that's a different story. That is it's not function. I don't know what else to call that. The function of getting Kyler Murray makes complete sense. And I probably myself would have just named Kyler Murray the starting quarterback from day one, but I understand from KOC's standpoint of, well, if I give every single rep the entire time to Kyler Murray and he has had injuries, if he goes out in week 3, then what? I have an unprepared JJ McCarthy. I think you want to get all the base stuff in for him, which I think is what they're doing. Mr. Mayor, would be nice to have a dedicated center. I think Brandel was too valuable as an everything swing player. Yeah, having Vandemark and having Tiernan is good for the tackles, but feeling like they don't really have a guard. I don't know. Would they have to play Vandemark at guard or something? I don't know what happens if a guard gets hurt right off the bat here. Purple Faithful, Sando's survey had Murray as 23rd, should be ahead of Bryce Young. Totally agree with that. Didn't watch him last year, though, probably ahead of Daniel Jones, too, since he's coming off the Achilles. I certainly agree that he should be ahead of Bryce Young. Bryce Young averaged like 6 yards a pass and threw for 3,100 yards. Didn't have anywhere close to what Kyler has done at the peak of his career. So I think he should have been ahead of him. But the interesting thing about the tiers is the fact that where Kyler is, the tier 3, is in a tier with a lot of guys who made the playoffs last year. And they made the playoffs for a couple of different reasons. So there's like CJ Stroud, and there's Bo Nix, and there's Aaron Rodgers, and there's Daniel Jones. Well, Daniel Jones didn't make the playoffs, but he did play really well. Daniel Jones had a great running game to build off of. So the Vikings, take note of that. Aaron Rodgers won a bunch of one-score games, and I don't know if it was because he was clutch or they survived some of those, but he won a bunch of one-score games, which if you do that and you win a bunch of late games and so forth, well, you can certainly make the playoffs that way. And then CJ Stroud and Bo Nix had great defenses, which the Vikings have shown a capability to have, but I think there are questions whether this team could be that good. I don't think that this team could be as good as Denver or Houston was last year. Axton, would you suggest that what would I suggest that they do about center? I would suggest that they get a veteran player from somewhere, somehow, who's played center and guard. That's what I would do. I think that backup center is probably the biggest drop off aside from quarterback in the entire NFL, from the starter to the backup. Because even backup edge rushers, like there are some good ones in the league that rotate and stuff like that. Backups, there are no good backup centers. Truly, like there might be somewhere a rookie that someone drafted or whatever that they trust, Jake Slaughter or something. I don't know if he's starting, but there's very, very few good backup centers. Hard to find. Mr. Mayor, curious how much Flo was banking on Okudah last year. How much was his acquisition just that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah could get and took a low-cost flyer? Well, if it was just Kwesi's fault, then Flores didn't have to play him as much as he did or have him taking all the reps in practice. He could have just cut him. I like taking swings at guys. What I didn't love about that was they needed it to work. So Jamal Adams is a great example. They don't need Jamal Adams to work. if Jamal Adams doesn't work, they've still got a lot of linebackers. They've still got 4 safeties. It's okay. You'd like it to, because he could carve out a role and be kind of interesting. But I mean, if it doesn't, then it's not like you're in trouble. With Okudah last year, they wanted him to play, and when he did, it was very problematic. So yeah, that one was a little bit different and spoke to the struggles with depth that they had last year, that maybe it's a little better this year. Paul, the processing speed for McCarthy and Murray seems to be concerning. Feel like we're going to have the most sacks taken this year. Just one of those guys. It has not been processing speed for Kyler Murray. That has not been an issue really at all. And if you look at Murray's career sack rate, it's fine, if not good, for his career sack rate. So it's really for McCarthy. McCarthy is having the issues with getting rid of the football and processing. I think the processing has been good from Kyler Murray. Now, of course, O'Connell and McCown and all those guys, they know better than I do where he's supposed to go with the football, but my brain just works in 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, ball out. And Murray has gotten the ball out on time. Really, like today is a great example where there's a throw over the middle to Jayshon Jones, and it throws it to the right spot, and he throws it to the right guy on time with the break, and he just threw it too high. And, I don't know, maybe if it's Justin Jefferson, he goes up and gets it, but you need that ball to be a little bit more accurate. And Murray's accuracy has been good for his career, but just in this offense so far, it's only been good some days, and it hasn't been good every single day. And the execution hasn't been good every single day. But I don't think it's been a ball coming out of his hands issue. That's been much more with McCarthy. And that's why you think, well, if he starts to really get it and get all the reps, that it should improve. Mr. Mayor, the difference is that Kyler is a game changer and a scrambler. JJ ran a couple of times, but ate way too many sacks. Right. I mean, he had 27 sacks and he only threw the ball 243 times. I mean, that's a crazy rate. But the difference is everything. The difference, truly for their careers, it's everything. Like Murray has been everything better than JJ McCarthy in the actual games. There is nothing that JJ McCarthy has done in a game that's been better than what Murray has done. He's better at scrambling. He's more accurate. He's run offenses better. He has had much higher ceiling games. I mean, what can you say, right? That's why Murray is more likely to be the quarterback, because he's done all those things. Doesn't mean McCarthy can't get there, but just based on their actual performance, there's really nothing. And even when you talk about ceiling and pedigree, I've seen at least someone say that there's a higher ceiling for McCarthy. It's like, how does you figure? How do you figure then a guy who was the number 1 overall draft pick and has this kind of throwing ability and this kind of scrambling ability and all the tools there, to make him drafted, number 1 and have these seasons, at least 3 of them that have been really, really good, versus the 5th quarterback off the board. I mean, it's really quite different, I think, in terms of pedigree between the two guys and resume between the two guys. And that's why coming into this, the odds were heavily swung toward Kyler Murray. Purple Faithful, Murray is not an easy sack, but the runaround offense isn't in rhythm. Yeah, you don't want to be doing it that way. You definitely do not want to be doing it that way. Marceline says, I guess the Vikings just have amazing depth and 26 different combinations of with no stability at left tackle. Are you talking about last year? We're talking about this year. The bronze solo, McCarthy can run. He's even scored when he run. Yeah, but it's not, I mean, it's fine. He's a fine runner. It's not what Murray's done. Some of these things with McCarthy are just a little odd. Like the angles people say. No one says he's not a good athlete, or no one says he doesn't have the tools, or that he didn't have it hard or anything last year. Nobody says those things, but by this point in his second training camp, the timing should be better than it is. The accuracy should be better than it is. And it would have had to have been absolutely excellent when it came to his performance in this training camp to make it interesting. Purple Faithful, I don't know what metric you're using for last year's offensive line. It was definitely not 31st by PFF. It was an average offensive line by PFF overall. They just did not have the greatest health, but when they were healthy, like against Chicago and Baltimore, the quarterback play was still incredibly poor, even though they had good performances. Young Cringe, feel like it's safe to say that we need to move on from KOC. Okay. I mean, I don't I don't know that Sam Darnold played better under Clint Kubiak. I think that they had a more complete team and they had a really good plan for him, and he didn't get sacked as much. But this is not looking like, you guys are overreacting. This is not looking like T-Jacks and Rosenfels from 2009. I mean, what are we doing here? I knew I should have just waited till tomorrow after this practice. I should have just gone live tomorrow. It's kind of devolved a little bit here. So, okay, let's find something different to talk about. First name, last name says feels like Claiborne might be competing against all the wide receiver sixes for a roster spot. 3 tight ends, 5 wide receivers, 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 1 fullback is 24 players and 9 O-linemen. There are a lot of good depth pieces on defense. So I think that Claiborne will make the roster because I don't think they would want to expose him to waivers. Someone would pick up a guy that fast who was a 6th rounder, I think. It's not 100%, but I think with someone like that, they might. I would look at it much more like the wide receivers. It's going to be 5, and it'll be Price and Ty Felton, and they will likely let the other guys go, but then sign them to the practice squad. Sign Fleming, sign Jay Sean Jones, and then we'll see if anybody else, maybe possibly Dylan Belly had a catch today, but he's going to need to shine in the preseason. We just don't see a lot of teams that are picking up other players, waived guys. We just don't see that a whole heck of a lot in the NFL. So you can get a, like, you cut Jay Sean Jones, you're getting him back for sure. You cut Dante Fleming, you're getting him back. These guys have been on your practice squad before. I don't think you would get back Damon Claiborne. I think people will see his speed. Philip, I think the discussion around the 2026 Vikings needs to refocus to the running game. It's pretty bad. I think that if they are not able to put together an above average running game, which last year in terms of expected points added was actually pretty good. It's just that no one cared. Like at the end of the season, when they're putting together a lot of the more consistent performances, but they were efficient even through the entire season because Jordan Mason averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Though it was not a very bad running game on the whole last season. It's just that you need it to be relied upon probably more than KOC has ever relied on a run game if you're going to be in the playoffs. And so I agree with that. I think the offensive line being 100% healthy is a huge deal. I think that schematically it's a big deal. I think they're being pushed, and I can see it, extremely hard from Keith Carter. They're coming off the ball hard, which everybody is talking about, how quickly they're coming off the ball and how aggressively to try to be the first person that, imposes their will, football kind of thing. But I totally agree with you that if you're not able to run the football, you are going to have some problems. Norse Force think the joint practice should be a good test for the rookie players, and also preseason. The rookies should be out there for the preseason. You guys should get to see Demings and Golday and Banks and Orange and all those guys. So the preseason will be a good look for them. Skull MN, do you think the rookie running back will make the team? Oh yeah, Claiborne. Yeah, I think he'll make the team. I do. Philip, both Mason and Jones are injury prone. Do you really call Jordan Mason injury prone? I think Jones has been banged up quite a bit, but Mason played most of the season last year. Do I think that, Claiborne, and I assume you mean Xavier Scott, will be able to carry them? No, I don't think that. And I think that they do have to at least put in consideration other running back options. But when you have 2 guys that are veteran players, that's where you're going to start, and then we'll see where things go from there. The Bronze Soul, has Thornton practice holding with Reichard? Yes, he has. We talked about that with Matt Daniels today. I don't think it's something he's going to be ready to do this season. I think that ideally with Thorson's leg talent, what you'd be looking to do is get him to the practice squad, use the international exception, which allows them to have 1 extra guy in the practice squad, develop him for next year, have him do a lot of holding in practice and stuff, and go from there. That's great, Jesse. You just ordered the Brooklyn bed. That's great. That's great. In fact, well, that's a good time to remind everyone, so I don't forget in the second hour, that we do have a great sponsor in Brooklyn Betting. Let me give you the FanDuel question of the day again first. The FanDuel question of the day is that the odds for week 1 are out, and the Vikings are 1.5 point underdogs to the Green Bay Packers as of this moment. Want to know what the biggest question you'd have to answer before the end of camp to have confidence in week 1 for the Vikings would be? That is your FanDuel question of the day. And very cool that Jesse has ordered something for Brooklyn Betting. The promo code PURPLE is great, 30% off there. And I love my new Aurora Lux mattress from Brooklyn Betting. I've told you guys, I mean, something, I don't know whether it's hitting the ball so darn hard golfing or what a incredible fadeaway jumper I have, but I do have back issues sometimes. I really need a good mattress, and I got a great one from Brooklyn Betting. It's not mass-produced, disposable. It's not just some big pile of foam. This thing is built intentionally, built to last, and also built for my body type and my sleep style and all that. They can even do hard to find sizes if you need them. You can get whatever you want. It's great. So I feel supported, and it doesn't take hours to get to sleep anymore like it did before I had this mattress from Brooklyn Betting. So if it hadn't worked out, then, I would have got the 120 night comfort trial. And if you aren't comfortable, you can swap or return the mattress hassle-free, but definitely not doing that. So go to brooklynbetting.com, or at least, I'm not, and use the promo code PURPLE, 30% off site-wide. So anything on their site, 30% off brooklynbetting.com. And Jesse's not a plant. He's a real person that decided to go check it out. And I hope it works out for you, Jesse. Appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, do you think Jefferson would ever in a million years advocate for the dude that failed so miserably? I really think that Justin Jefferson trying to be a good teammate is not advocating. I think he will give his opinion if he's asked by Kevin O'Connell, but I don't think he's going to bang the drum, and say, you got to do this or do that. I don't think that's how he is. Philip, we have 4 running backs right now. All of them can't carry a team the way we will need for any quarterback and defense to flourish. I mean, I agree that it would be wonderful if they could get Jahmyr Gibbs and, Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson, but I think you can run efficiently with this offense and with these 2 running backs. If you have, just for example, if you have 200 carries for Jordan Mason and it's close to 1,000 yards and another 100 or 125 for Aaron Jones, and he gets 4.5 yards a carry, 4.2 to 4.5, and then the occasional carry for the other guys. I mean, you're in pretty good shape. I think that Scott can probably handle being a backup for a week or 2 weeks. The issue would be you get halfway into the season, one of the guys goes out for 6 weeks. You're in a lot of trouble. I mean, I don't disagree with that. Right now, it feels like there's some fragility there if Damon Claiborne's not ready to go. But even then, you might just have to. If someone gets banged up, you might just have to say, all right, you're the fastest dude out there, go run with the football and try to simplify it for him. But I think they do need to keep their eye on potentially other running backs who could come available. And it is a little surprising that they didn't get one other free agent to bring in here. But they also do like Xavier Scott a lot more than I think people realize. Mr. Mayor, what's Harrison Smith's realistic odds to make the Hall of Fame? Does he have enough love outside of Minnesota? So I did an article about this 2 years ago when I thought Harrison was going to retire. And I had a great conversation with Andrew Sandejo and Anthony Harris about it. And both of them pointed out with defensive backs, because one of the questions I asked them is like, why do you think there aren't more safeties in the Hall of Fame? There's just not that many. And both of them said it's because it is really hard to quantify what someone like Harrison Smith does with just box score stats. And I totally agree. The PFF metrics would point to a Hall of Fame caliber player, and the box score stats and the availability, which never seems to be factored into the Hall of Fame. But if you're a great player and you play 1,000 snaps every freaking year, maybe Jim Marshall, you should get some extra attention for that, which I don't know that we always factor in quite enough. But durability is a huge deal in the NFL. I think the struggle is going to be that position is not getting a lot of shine. The Hall of Fame has been made smaller and not bigger, which drives me crazy, because it's a museum to celebrate greatness in the NFL. Not only the Deion Sanders level, one of one all-time Lawrence Taylor greatness, but, greatness for fans who want to celebrate their favorite players of all time. So there's a balance that should be, and they seem to think that it should only be Drew Brees. But anyway, the point just being, I think it's going to be hard because, in part, he did not reach a threshold of Pro Bowls or All Pros that usually takes. And the other thing is that he didn't have playoff moments. And where people remember those, voters remember those. Whereas, oh yeah, that Super Bowl run, that guy was incredible. I mean, you see, Terrell Davis to me is one of the hardest to be in the Hall of Fame ever, because the guy had, it was great. It was incredible, but he had like 4 seasons, but they were all on TV and they were all in the Super Bowl and 2,000 yards. It's like Harrison just didn't get many of those opportunities to make big plays. I mean, if the Minneapolis Miracle had been a 99-yard touchdown return by Harrison Smith, then that might get more attention. It's just, those are the challenges. The challenges are not the performance and not the value. The performance or the marketing. And you know, Harrison's not really going to do the marketing himself. If Harrison, who would be amazing at this, by the way, if Harrison became a TV analyst, I think his chances would go up. He's just missing some of those things that had nothing to do with how well he actually played given his own opportunities. SF Will, how often you doing the Vikings Collective podcast? It's going to be once a week. There was a very weird technical issue last Wednesday night, so we moved it to Thursday, but we're going to do once a week, every week, all the way through the season. Myself, Alec Lewis, and Garrett Greenlee. Garrett's a lifelong Vikings fan who has an amazing YouTube that you should check out, Football Analysis. So yeah. Eric, maybe JC Treader could come out of retirement. It's hard to find centers, man. Hard to find centers. That is funny that, I'm sorry, Philip, you're being totally reasonable about questioning the running backs, but Byron Scott, was a basketball player. And I wondered who you meant by Byron, but Byron Scott was a basketball player. Good player, but kind of got pushed off by, Michael Jordan there, didn't he? Matt, what's the biggest area of concern so far outside of, neither quarterback looking great? I would say safeties being banged up. Jay Ward and Jacoby Thomas, and not being sure about that, how that's going to work, like with Metellus. And I think he's such a good football player and such a smart football player that he will adjust, but there's definitely things skill set wise that are not Harrison Smith. And we just don't know what Jay Ward's going to be. I think we know that Theo can play in games, but as an every down player, he didn't have as much success last year, and they started making changes there. It's safety for me at this moment. Definitely safety is the biggest area of concern. I really think, Philip, I really think, because you're saying KOC's lack of investment in the run game. I mean, I think that the investment in the run game this offseason has been good. I would say satisfactory. And overall, when you think about, well, they went and got Will Fries, a good run blocker. They drafted a good run blocker in Donovan Jackson. They drafted a running back. They traded a draft pick for a running back. They spent money on a running back. They drafted a fullback. They hired a guy from the best running scheme team other than San Francisco. I mean, there's a lot of things they've done, but what they haven't done is they haven't gone out and gotten the next Adrian Peterson or next, big dollar running back or highly drafted running back. And so there are limitations. I do think that Mason is maybe being underappreciated by you for the fact that he's averaged almost 5 yards a carry over the last 2 seasons, but it's not a Bijan. It is not a Jonathan Taylor. And I think until they have that, you're probably not going to have a running back who covers a multitude of sins. You're going to have a running back who's basically a product of what you can do schematically and blocking wise, and will have limitations in the passing game. High Time says, not sure how I'm supposed to feel after training camp, but it feels like this team's going to suck. I mean, I don't know why you think that. It's just that we're always asking sort of these questions about the roster. My assessment hasn't changed through 9 days. I mean, I'm not overreacting and changing what I think they're going to do from a win-loss perspective, just because in an unpadded 75% speed practice, there wasn't a lot of completions. I don't know. Overreacting, does happen though. Max Powers, you work at a Thai restaurant in Arizona. Podcast is a lifesaver. Well, that's great, man. There's a lot of people. So some people have asked me about the fact that the show has been going like 2 hours every night and whatever. I mean, for me, it's when I keep getting questions and comments, I just keep talking to you guys and then look down and realize, oh boy, it's been, a couple of hours. There's a lot of people who listen at work or drive truck or whatever it might be who have said that they really like the longer pods. So in the season, I think I was maybe not going quite as long, but I think I'll carry on doing that. Philosopher, how has TJ Hawkinson looked so far? Haven't heard his name much. Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of underneath stuff, kind of typical TJ Hawkinson receptions that maybe the ball travels 5 to 7 yards and gets a couple completions. I think I didn't really see him the first few days, but I've seen him much more recently. He had a touchdown today in red zone that I gave Kyler Murray a positive play for because he progressed to Hawkinson, just zipped it in there. Hawkinson catches it kind of tight to his body in between defenders. I think he's looked fairly spry. I think he's looked all right. I don't know. Like last year, I thought he had a really good camp and it didn't turn out to be a good season. McCarthy found him a bunch in camp and especially in joint practices and then didn't seem to look there when the games really happened. But I do have with Murray higher expectations for TJ Hawkinson for this year, I think by a lot. Yep, Philip, totally understand on the run game. Yep, totally understand. Najee Harris is available. Would the Vikings use money to get him? Possibly. I mean, they do have cap space. They can get whatever free agent they want to get at the end of camp. I don't know where Najee Harris is at. I mean, what happened last year? Wasn't there a firework incident? And then he barely played for the Chargers after he was kind of a good signing for them. Guy who had 1,000 yards a bunch of times. I don't know what they'll do if they have an injury because you can't really ask either one of those guys to just be the entire offense. It would probably be if it's Aaron Jones, Mason, and Xavier Scott. Xavier Scott can be a third down back. I think we do have to give him credit for that. And then occasionally mix in Claiborne. But if it was Mason, I don't know that you want Aaron Jones carrying the ball 20 to 25 times. I think you'd much rather have it be like 7 to 13 at the most. Then you might have to think about going out and getting another running back, and they may do that. They may feel like they may have looked at this like, let's see how far along Claiborne is, and it's not over the camp. And if he's not far enough along where we believe we could play him for an entire game, then go out and potentially get a veteran. You could still do that at the end of camps. You could still go get a veteran. Steven Felton might be pushing Demings for the 2026 Mr. Mankato Award. Let's see how the night practice plays out. Felton is not eligible, and I know it's a fake award, so do with that what you will. But him being a third-round draft pick, to me, I always thought it was day 3 or undrafted free agent, and the fact that he's already played an entire season in the NFL where he was on the field a lot. So Demings, to me, is running away with it, but Gavin Bartholomew is the one who's close behind, and Felton has made good plays every single day. He's just got to make some routine ones more often. That's been the issue that I've had with Felton. I think he's had a really good camp for explosive plays down the field. Great catch today. He's had the catch of the year in the back of the end zone. This guy can play football. I mean, this is why when people last year, like this, he's a bust and everything, like he can definitely play, but they got to be able to trust him to catch the routine stuff, which I don't know that he's done as well in this camp. How is Christian Ponder being argued about in the chat? Sometimes I think about the poor, replay listeners who are listening to the audio and they're like, wait, what happened? How did the chat get to that point? Lucas, you'd like to see both quarterbacks alternate days. Oh, thank you, Dave, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you, man. Always appreciated, but never required. Yeah, I mean, I think that if you were going to do that, Lucas, you would have done it at the beginning of camp. If you were going to do it at the beginning of camp, I see your point. I see what you're saying is like give guys full practices because someone has a good start to a practice, then you got to go stand there and watch the other guy take 6 reps. I get where you're coming from that. They've instead decided to go 50-50 through each day, but you probably would have had to do that from really day one of, okay, now this is how we're going to do this competition, but it hasn't really been a 50-50 type of thing because Murray has gotten so many more first team reps. Then you wouldn't really want to do split every other day because then you're giving 50-50 to the first team. He's gotten equal total reps, but not on the first team anywhere close. Expose is their concern with Demings and flags. Notice he's very physical. Oh, any rookie there will be. Yep. Any rookie, absolutely, there's going to be flags. Yeah, all of them. They come in and play way, way, way too physical. Steven, Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame speech was awesome. I thought called out the time he was a ball boy for the Vikings. Much respect for Carter and Randy Moss. The Randy Moss part I saw, and I thought that was so cool. Like, the thing about Randy Moss is that everyone had a perception of him, and I think that was earned by Randy himself for different times. But the way that you hear some people talk about how Randy treated them as individuals, like Larry Fitzgerald, and guiding him along as a young guy with a ton of talent is just so cool. And I knew Larry Fitzgerald's dad, Big Fitz, really well. I mean, for 10 years from the minute I got here until he passed away. And I felt so bad for Larry to not be able to be there. Big Fitz, talk about a guy who was super, super proud of his son, man. It was all he talked about. And I know that he knew it was happening. I mean, everyone knew that Larry was going to go to the Hall of Fame, but it's kind of heartbreaking for me to see that. And for Big Fitz not to be there, really, really hard for him. And Fitz is just such a nice guy. Always wanted to talk football with everybody. Was always so great. He would stop me, Big Fitz, and say, "Hey, I saw your wife calling a game," and that sort of thing. And always a very kind person. I just felt very sad for Larry. It's got to be a little bittersweet for that, to not have his father there today. So I was thinking about that. Hunter, you've probably addressed this coming in late. How dare you? Are you concerned with the quarterback play after this practice? Or are we not there yet? No, not there yet. No. Yellow is where I'm at on the meter. A little bit like, okay, it's kind of time to get serious here and string practices together. But concerned? No, we're just too far away. Last year, Carson Wentz wasn't even on the team yet, came in and still ran the offense. And I can certainly tell you 100% that Darnold and Kirk Cousins were doing the same thing about this time. But we are getting to the point where it's got to get a little bit more consistent. And I really think the page that gets turned is when KOC goes from installing the offense, getting the basics down to, all right, now we're preparing for the Packers. That's where you should start to see more consistency with the practices. Also, we've never put the guys under this much of a microscope before. So if we did that, we probably would come home some days with little charts and be like, what the heck, Kirk? But I never did that with Kirk because he was the starting quarterback, and I would try to judge other players and point out receivers and different trends and stuff like that, rather than focus too much on exactly what Kirk was doing. But it's just a different story this year. Roxanne wanting to know why people are taking sides if you're all Vikings fans. Well, I won't really get into that, but some people do it on the internet for attention, and I think some people do it because of disappointment. That's probably a 50-50 split. There's a lot of disappointment with the last kind of hope for, hey, if Kyler comes in and blows this guy away, then he could be the guy still. And that hasn't happened. So I understand that there's a lot of holding on to that hope that there would be a corner that's been turned, because it has happened for a lot of quarterbacks for sure over the years, where they've just, turned a corner and it started to click and everything else. And it just feels like it goes so fast, right? That's the thing. It feels like it goes so fast where you go from, doesn't it feel like yesterday that we were talking about 2024 and going into the night practice thinking, what a great first preseason game JJ just had. And then what? What do you mean he got hurt? Does it feel that long ago? It doesn't for me. It's crazy. Let's see. Mr. Mayor, left tackle. Okay. We're getting into that still. I mean, relitigating last year is pretty senseless. We all know what happened last year. Bad move, Space Cadet. I mean, every team in the league goes through stuff. They have the best receiver in the NFL. They have the coach of the year from 2024. You can't finish 42nd in quarterback rating. You can't finish 70th out of 84 quarterbacks in their first 10 games of their career over the last 15 years in adjusted net yards per attempt. You just can't. You can't be last in bad throw percentage by Pro Football Reference. You just can't. And not have a challenge the next year in training camp. That's not how it works inside the building. So like sometimes I feel like people want me to just make a bunch of excuses over and over and over again, but that's not what they're doing inside the Vikings building about last year. That's not the way they're viewing it. So why should I view it that way? They went out and signed Kyler Murray, not me. Sometimes you think I did it. I didn't do it. I just suggested it. And then it happened. I didn't do it. They did. So the way that the team is evaluating the situation was you need to go out and get a real starting quarterback. If they had brought in Kirk, Joe Flacco, I would have had a very different tune. I would have said, wow, they must believe in that. Steve, you can give a super chat anytime, Steve. You're always threatening it. That's funny. The bronze solo. You guys are funny. Okay, well, I think we've gone past go a little bit here. So anyway, yeah, I mean, the longer that I live stream, the more that like certain people come in and try to like derail the live stream. That's why there's maybe some pauses as I scroll through looking for realistic comments. Bumbaclat says Deming sounds like he could be a starter sooner than later. I'm thinking maybe next year. Isaiah Rodgers' contract is up. He'll probably want $15 to $18 million if he starts the entire season and plays well. Could be even more than that. So potentially Demings could work in there, or if there's any injury. These two guys have good injury histories, but you never know when someone's going to get banged up. I think he'll play this year at some point. Eric says, when's the last time we had young players developing in the background? Man, I don't know. It really, truly, this many of them, very few. So that's the thing about what Nolan Teasley is taking over here is there are a lot of guys that are bringing along with them in intrigue that will get a chance to develop and not just, hey, come in, save us, or, we're just going to get rid of you because you're not good enough right away. Okay, well, look, tomorrow night we got the night practice, so we are going to jump into that tomorrow night. The way that will work is I'll go to the night practice, and the minute it's over, I'm going to guess that I'll probably be home by like 9. That's the guess. 8:30, 9. I would be surprised if it's as early as 8:30. Somewhere in that range. And I'll fire it up as fast as I can. And I'm going to track the passes again and everything else and get those into the system, hopefully while I'm at the stadium still. And then here I come. I'll be back. I'll jump on live. I'll break down the whole practice for you, just the way that we've done with all the other practices. And we'll see what other things come up. Historically, the night practice has often been memorable. So we'll see how it plays out this time with Kyler Murray in front of the Vikings fans. And, we'll see what Kevin O'Connell has to say in the press conference beforehand, because that could get quite interesting as well. So thanks everybody for watching / listening tonight. And we will catch you guys tomorrow. Football.